Welcome to the Greatest Choice Podcast, challenging you to make greater choices and get married.
Welcome everybody to the Greatest Choice Podcast. I'm your host Victor, and I'm here with my brothers Nilto, Rodrigo, and Gabe.
Hey, yo!
So as you probably heard, we're gonna challenge you today about marriage. Okay, so we're gonna talk about the difference. We talked about dating last week, and now we're gonna talk into the next step, which dating should lead to marriage, right? So we're gonna bring a little bit of perspective. Nilton and I are married. Gabe is engaged. Rodrigo is dating. So they're gonna ask us some questions.
Burning with desire over here, man.
So I think it will be interesting. I think it's a nice transition from dating. And I mean, again, I'm not gonna break the tradition here. Nilton, you've been married for what, almost a decade now?
Dude, 2014, so yeah, almost a decade.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Hey, you're already beating the odds.
Right? Yeah, I meant to look at the statistics, but I'm probably way ahead now.
Oh, yeah. It's the first 80% of marriages end after the first 2 years.
Wow. I didn't know it was that high.
Dang.
That's incredible.
Congrats, man. You just got you're in your third year?
I know. I'm 2.5.
Let's get it to 3.
Yeah, let's get it to 3.
You deserve a clap too, bro.
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go.
Awesome.
So, Nilton, talk to us. Marriage.
Marriage, man. It's the holy matrimony, right? It's the foundation of society, the foundation of the church. I used to be my first official job that I actually got paid. I was a church secretary for our church. And for a long time, I was dealing with the library. So I'd bring in like the books. I would do the sales after service. So people wanted to buy CDs and stuff. And I always had to kind of keep it in order. And there was this one book that always stood out to me. I never read it because at the time I was too young. But the name of the book was Strong Families, Strong Churches. And that always kind of resonated with me, that it's like the foundation of a church is a family. And you kind of start a family with marriage. And I think to me, obviously, it'll play differently to different people. But from a very young age, I always looked at dating as what we talked about. Like, if I'm going to get into a relationship dating, my goal is to marry. And very early on, I kind of made that decision that it was that Katie, my long-time girlfriend, was going to be my wife. And I'm sure we're going to go into more details and as we progress with the conversation. But in my case, I got married young. I think I was about 23, 24. And I was not as prepared as I thought it was. I think that's probably the biggest shock that I had, was that because we dated for so long and I thought that I was like this mature guy, like different from other people that were like in the dating world just to kind of like pass the time. I was always very intentional about dating. So I thought that was going to make me more focused and more ready for it, but I was not.
Well, do you feel like there's a point in your life where you are fully ready to get married? Like, is that a thing?
Never. You'll never know that you're ready to get married. You'll never know when you're ready to be a father, which was another kind of phase that I'm already going through. So there's never really that point. And I think we touched up on it on the last episode, that it takes kind of that leap of faith for you to make that decision. But I think as much as you may think that you're kind of like well-equipped, at least to get married, the transition and I wouldn't say problems, but the circumstances that you deal with now that you're living with this person is very different. And there's nothing really that can prepare you 100% for it. Obviously, you can be more well-rounded and know that person well. That transition is smoother, but there's always going to be this transition phase.
Imagine this. You go to college for 4 years, and then you get a master's degree, and then you go to your job, you don't know anything. Like when you actually go work.
Yeah. How about you, man? Because you've actually
so that's the point I'm trying to make,
into
right?
Marriage.
So
how was it for you?
You go to school for 5 years, and then you start your job, you don't know anything. It's like dating. Like dating is just like a practice.
There's nothing that can transition over from my
I mean,
dating life
it's
to my
not that
marriage.
nothing can transition over, but you kind of know the basics, but you don't fully know somebody until you actually live with them.
Mm.
I think especially for guys, I'll tell you this. Mariana's probably gonna hate me for saying this. It's okay, babe. We'll figure it out. So when Mariana had some times, during the month that she would, her mood would kind of swing a little bit. So for a week when I was dating, I would be like, babe, I have a lot of things to do for school. I won't be able to see you this week.
You just dipped out for a week, man.
You can't run away when you're married.
So how was that when you got married? You can't do that.
And that was a problem. I mean, you had to deal with it. And then the second thing is when you fight when you're dating, you each go to your house, you got time to cool off. But when you're married, you gotta go to the same bed, man. Like you gotta go back to it. Like, so I think what Nilton said is such a valid point, man, because that was exactly what happened to me, man. I got married and then I was like, dude, I was not ready for this. It was hard. It seemed like no matter what I did, I wouldn't be able to resolve the problems that would arise. Like, and everything would turn into this huge storm. Like a small fight would take this enormous proportions, and it's lack of maturity for us guys. I think all men think they know a woman. You do not know a woman if you're not married, because you need to understand a very basic principle that we're two completely different beings, and motivations are different for each one of us. And I think that for me was the hardest thing, because sexually, for example, right? All Mariana had to do is walk in front of me. I was like, all right, I want to.
Let's go.
I'm ready. Right. Yeah. But then for her, like, it's a whole process. And they appreciate these simple things in life. And I'm like, and it's crazy because I'm like, okay, I can go buy flowers for you if you want. I don't know, like, what do you want? But dude, it's just like we were talking about it, about opening the door for her to get into the car, bringing, I don't know, a candy for her. I don't know, simple things. And I didn't do it in the beginning because I didn't do it while we were dating, and it was fine, right? And Mariana actually had to go out of her way, buy books for us, try to make me more emotional because, you guys all know me. I'm not very emotional. So it's hard. So I learned, but also, and it's very worth mentioning, things only got better for me once I started getting close to Jesus. Because there's a lot, like, remember, because marriage is the foundation of society, and it's one of the most important pillars at church, the devil doesn't want it to work.
Exactly.
So you can try to rationalize it. You can try to read all the books you want about, the psychology of marriage. But if you don't really, bring Jesus into the relationship and make sure that God is the foundation of your relationship, it's never going to work.
That's the truth. And
wow.
it took me quite a long time as well to kind of figure that out, because we tend to think that we're self-sufficient and that we can figure stuff out on our own, and it's a constant struggle. And I can remember, because I've been married for 2014, so 9 years, almost 10. But me and Katie dated for 6 years, and we were engaged for 2. So we had a long time for us to kind of get acquainted, get to know each other, and know about each other's faults. So we feel like, all right, I know this person well enough that there's nothing really that's going to surprise me when we get married. But nothing's further from the truth, because, like he said, when you're living together, there's a different dimension of the level of intimacy in the relationship that you now have. And for a long time, I think I didn't give God enough room in my marriage. And we tried many times to kind of figure stuff out our own way. And the crazy thing is that the problems never go away. Like, you try to fix it.
Not fully.
You rationalize, and then you kind of like decide that it's okay. And you kind of go your own way, and then things are good again. But it's bound to come up again. And then it comes up again and again and again. And what ends up happening is that the problem ends up becoming worse, because you start to build up resentment because there's something that wasn't solved the way that it should have been in the beginning. So emotionally speaking, it takes a toll. So if you start off right, having God in the relationship from the very beginning, it saves you tons of trouble.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the preparation of going into a marriage, when you already have that foundation that God is the center of your marriage and you're always going to kind of defer to him to figure stuff out, then you're definitely putting yourself in the right path.
Now I have a question for the both of you guys who are married.
Sure.
One thing that me dating Giovanna for a little over a year now, one thing that I hear a lot, and it kind of makes me iffy on this whole marriage situation, is that everybody kind of looks back to their dating life and they're like, oh yeah, dating was such a breeze. It was so much fun. It was way happier than it is right now. And then they're like kind of comparing their dating life to their marriage life. And I'm like, dude, I don't want that for myself. Like, I don't want, there's a lot of things about marriage that I do want for my life.
But
You know what I mean?
isn't that for everything in life? Like, think about it this way. If you are an intern at a job that you really want, okay? You're seeking that job. It's not yours yet. You're trying to convince everybody there that you're good. You're trying to show that you're the best possible at that position so somebody can hire you, right?
Yeah.
Then when you get hired, now it becomes a job. You no longer have to prove yourself technically because you're already there. And that's when the problem happens in marriage. So before I got married, I was always trying to impress Mariana, right? Like, hey, let me take you out. Let me spoil you a little bit. And then you get married. And if you don't keep that trial going, if you don't keep trying to earn that person's love every single day, and I didn't in the beginning, that's when it becomes that challenging because you get into the comfort zone.
Right.
And we can translate that for every single area of our life. So when you're dating, yes, it's a commitment that you have with another person, but when you get married, it's a completely different level. Yeah. And here's the thing, things change spiritually too in your life when you get married.
And when you talk about marriage too, and I think that's where kind of like the reasoning behind the divorce rates being so high is that people want their marriage to be like their dating life, and then as soon as it isn't, they skip out because there's that lack of commitment that it's like I've made the decision that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with this woman. And I think maybe for Victor not as much because he's kind of like early on, but I can say for myself, I've been married for almost 10 years. And it's true. Like I love my wife. But that love, that passion that you feel while you're dating, it's different. And you have to make a commitment to keep that passion alive. Because if you don't, like he said, you're just kind of you earned it, right? You put the ring on it, you're married now, and now it takes actual action. It doesn't come naturally that you're going to be like super attracted or physically active and wanting to go out on dates and buying flowers. Like that stuff tends to kind of die out. So you have to make a conscious effort that it's like, this is my wife. I'm supposed to love her. And bro, this is the verse that like, it's scary. I'm supposed to love my wife like
The same way Christ loves his church.
Yeah.
So the standard, bro, is very high.
Yeah.
So
Real quick.
Yeah.
Do you believe love is a choice?
I do. Yeah. It's a continuous choice. You have to choose to love. And it's not just saying it because you have to choose to act on that love. It's not just a matter of saying like, yeah, I love God, but okay, what am I doing to show that love to God? And it's the same thing with your wife. That relationship that you can draw the comparison that my relationship with my wife should be the same as Jesus and the church. Jesus gave his life to the church. So like that
He died.
He died. Yeah. So the level of commitment that you need to have to your wife, it's the highest that it can be.
So I think
I just one quick. I just researched something because I said that 80% of marriages end in divorce. So 51% of all marriages end in divorce. 80% of second marriages end in divorce.
wow.
Okay, so I wanted to just retract and correct that. So 51% of all marriages, right? And then 41%. If you get married to one person, right, and you never get married again, the chances are that 41% of those people will end up in divorce. But if you go and try to get married a second time, 80% of the time
Doesn't work out.
Doesn't work out.
And it's pretty clear to
That's
see why,
crazy.
because when people decide to get divorced, is because they've made the decision that that person isn't right for them. And then what's going to change on the next one? Because you're always going to find fault in people.
Yeah.
So that's why there's this commitment that it's like, despite your flaws, and not their fault, but your flaws as well. So that person has to make that commitment that regardless of your flaws, I choose to love you every day. And we're going to make this work, and we're going to start a family. So
forgiveness takes a whole different
oh
path
man,
when
there's a
Now,
whole
Here's also another question that I have for you, because you said like I choose to love my wife every single day. Right. But I think how us men express love and how women like your wife or your wife receives love is very different.
yes.
So how do you guys handle those problems when your form of love and is like, I'm gonna work 24/7 as much as I can and try to make as much money as soon as possible so I can retire my wife.
I mess up all the time.
But what do you do when she doesn't feel loved, and when you're working for her to be able to feel loved?
This is why it's important for you to choose a great wife, because that's a flaw I have. Like Mariana knows. Like she kind of calls me out. She is the one that, she comes up with a strategy. She's like, all right, I know you're busy, but twice a week, twice a month, we're going to go out for a date. She researches, she listens to podcasts about it, and then she brings it to our relationship, because she understands that right now it's not that I'm not prioritizing our relationship, but because my plate is so full, she helps us make sure that we don't lose the essence of our marriage, right? But I think it goes by complementing each other. I suck in that regard, and I'm not afraid to admit it. But that's where she comes in, and I have to make an effort to do well, because I'm not going to miss certain things that she will. And that's what I told Mariana. In the beginning, she would stay quiet about it. And I was like, babe, if you don't tell me what you need, I don't know. Because I was ever married before. This is new to me too, man. It's like, I don't know.
And I think that's the essence of it that Victor mentioned. And I think we hear this all the time, and I think that it's very true. I don't think that it's like the most essential thing, but communication is key, and it goes a long way. Because I think it was also a lack of maturity on our end in the beginning, that there were certain things that kind of threw me off about Katie when we got married. And the same thing, like things that I did that she didn't like, but that she kept it to herself. She didn't bring it to the table for us to actually address it, and for me to be aware, like, oh, this is a certain behavior of mine that I should change because it doesn't please my wife. In the same way from me to her. So like Victor said, I think there are certain phases of life where priorities change a little bit. So like you're starting a new job. You got to invest a lot of time. And when you have a wife that's understanding, she'll put it into perspective and be like, okay, this is temporary. This is not the way that he's going to carry out his life. This is kind of like a 3-month plan, a 6-month plan. And that's when the communication comes in. It's like, all right, babe, look, we started this business. I have a goal to get to here in the next 3 months. So sorry if we can't spend that much time together. Let's save some money going out. So it's all a matter of communicating. So when you're on the same page, everything flows.
And something that I actually wanted to bring, this is something that Pastor always says whenever he's doing a ceremony. He's like, you don't get married so that you can get happy. You get married to make the other person happy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Also, just some context real quick. I'm wearing a suit because I had a closing today. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's like something that was ringing in my head is I'm not going to get married so that I make myself happy. Like when I get married to Raquel, like I have to make her happy. You know what you said too, it's by our actions. Like all of this stuff, maybe like the feelings, the passion, as we get older too, a lot of people say like the physical attraction too, like it could die out later in the future, but what's going to hold that together is the love and the action that you guys put in together.
Yeah, but I want to challenge that. I think the physical attraction only dies out because people are careless with their physicality. Okay? Because we see people that are 35-year-old, they've been married for 10 years, and they look like they're 100 years old. They're like completely out of shape, right? The wife doesn't take care of herself. And then to me, it's always the husband's fault. Because you look at the husband, every husband will, I want my wife to take care of her appearance. But then you look at the guy,
And he
guy
doesn't do
looks
it.
like a melted ice cream. You know? So,
But I think it goes beyond the actual physical attraction in itself. I think
but
The
the
way that
physical
the-
attraction is very important.
it is very important. And
is
if
very
anybody downplays the fact that like you shouldn't think about being physically attracted to a potential wife, you're wrong.
You're already
There
trying
needs-
to justify you being
Yeah, there
ugly.
needs to be
It's the
physical.
only reason why you started talking to her in the first place, man. Let's be
Exactly.
real.
Very likely.
Like I
But-
wouldn't even have been. I wouldn't even be dating if I didn't think my girlfriend was hot.
Yeah,
Right.
there you go.
that- and
Real
that's
talk.
and that's the truth. But-
Real talk.
Real talk.
Come on.
absolutely. But I think what Gabe's talking about is not only the physical attraction in itself, but I think it's probably a misconception that everybody has is that once you get married, you're gonna get lucky every night, and that physical.
Yeah,
attraction,
how is that, by the way?
Well,
Please,
and that's the reality of it, because if you think about it, like
please give me some good news.
Vic, let's put it in perspective.
It's like,
Being
dude, you guys haven't said anything positive about being married.
Come on, man.
there's tons of positives, but if we're being real,
If you research it, look deep. I'm kidding.
when you, hey, the truth of the matter is that you go through circumstances, and sometimes sex is not kind of high in that priority list. You may go, and
Maybe
which
for
is
you.
no, I'm saying as time
All right,
progresses.
so let me
Can
stop
give
you
me
right there.
quantifiable
Dude,
expectations
here's
here,
the
please.
thing, man. Here's the thing. You gotta understand. Life is busy. Okay, life is busy too. Okay, right now I have 2 businesses, a podcast, about 11 people in my team, a wife, and you pretty much live here. Right, that I have to take care of you.
My name
too.
is on the deed, right?
So, there's start becoming priorities, right? Obviously, sex is a huge priority for me. I'm not-
as it should be.
It
As
it
should be.
is.
yeah.
It's like
But-
top 2.
But thinking that in the beginning, yes, dude, you're gonna do it twice a day, 7 times a week. You know what I mean? Like,
How long is the beginning for?
Oh.
bro? I mean, it depends on the person. For me, the beginning was a long time.
Okay,
But
babe, I hope our beginning is
here's
forever.
the thing. But here's the thing, man. I got married right in the pandemic, bro. I was like a rabbit. Okay.
Doing just at home, didn't have
I was
anything else
just
to
at
do.
home all day.
Oh, man.
Like I wasn't working. The bank was closed. I was like, all right.
Hey, but let me say this though. There was this one time. There's this pastor who's known in Brazil. She's a singer, and I go into my mom's room and she's listening to this kind of like women's conference thing, and she's taking questions live from the audience, and then she says someone asks her like, "What should I do when me and my husband like are in bad terms or something like that?" And her response was, "Have sex," and people were shocked.
Woman, listen to this man.
No, for real.
Milton is very wise.
No, but let me get to the conclusion that she came through,
Please
and that
continue.
so she was like, if you're in bad terms, right, and I will test this because this has happened. You have an issue and you don't resolve that issue, and you go with like kind of like the silent treatment, you know,
Yeah.
like for days without really talking to each other. And if you're in those terms, you're not having sex. So if you are having sex, that means you're probably in good terms. And there were times, it may be personal, but it has happened, that we had issues. And after we
Consummated the marriage.
we did the deed, our headspace was in a completely different place. And I was more open to what she had to say. She was
Wow.
more open to what I had to say.
That's
You
why
had-
I
and we
love you, man.
actually
She had the clarity.
Dude,
Yeah.
no, but I'm telling you, there's like a
Every man after, I forgive you, babe.
bro, it's the truth, man. So there are times that we need to watch out that sex shouldn't be like a chore, but it should be very much a part of your marriage. That if you're neglecting that part, then there are other areas of your marriage that are suffering.
And
Because
I'll
the
go ahead and
communication-
say that if marriage becomes a chore, if sex becomes a chore in your marriage, your marriage is already failing.
Oh,
man.
there you got tons of issues. So
Yeah.
there's a fine line between like, yeah, after a while, marriage isn't so focused on sex, but sex is still very much important and it should be part of your life on a regular basis. Now, what's a regular basis? It will depend on each person. And obviously, you thinking as
Burning
a
with
23-year-old burning with desire and testosterone, you're thinking, yeah, I want to do it all the time. But you will go through phases where you're like, I'm exhausted.
I don't see myself going through that phase.
Good.
Exactly.
But
Yeah,
you don't
no
see
one
it
does.
because you're 23. No one sees themselves because everybody has that mindset. They're like, when I get married, It's gonna be great.
It's game time.
It's game time, bro.
You know what's funny, dude? We think we're married to a doll. You know, like that doesn't. Hey, every time I want it, she's gonna be ready,
Right.
dude.
It's
At
another.
least I thought it was like she's mine now. Like
Right.
I'll never again have to do
That
anything else.
sucks, man.
You know, hey, there are
not like that.
there are certain things that when you hear like respect your elders, because there are certain things that you only learn with time. I can't tell you, Victor can't tell you until you go through that experience and see like, okay, now putting it into perspective, I see what they're talking about. And I saw it like so much of it now that I have Melissa. When my dad used to always say like, oh, you'll understand when you're a father. You probably heard this before multiple times.
Right.
And it's nothing further from the truth that I find myself in situations now that I'm a father, putting it into perspective, now I understand. And all these like expectations, of course, we're always going to joke about it. That like, no, I'm going to be different. My marriage will be different. I'm going to do it every day.
No, but I actually will be different.
No.
Good, man. Yeah.
But here's the
Clip
thing.
that right now, and in a couple of years, we'll look back on it.
No, but here's the thing. Let me
I
tell you.
hope I'm
Let me tell you
different,
there's some stigma around. After you get married, certain things happen. For example, when I started to get prepared to get married, everybody said I was gonna get fat. Ah, you're gonna get fat. You're gonna get fat now. You know why you get fat? Because you get comfortable, and then you start getting fat. Your wife starts getting fat too, and then all of a sudden, sex. Marriage sucks because we don't have sex. We have sex once a month on holidays and birthdays. Like everything contributes to it, man. I think for us men, it starts with us, right? We gotta take care of ourselves. And women are motivated by different things. They're not as much attracted to the physical sense as much as we are.
For sure.
But as men, it plays a huge part because I think it's about the discipline aspect of it, right? But first, also very important mentioning here, as men, when we get married, we take a huge responsibility, which is becoming the sacerdote, right? Like how do you say that?
The head of the household.
The head of the household spiritually too.
Oh yeah.
Not just financially, right? Not just in terms of emotions, but really being the guy that's bringing God into the relationship, bringing God into your house, making sure that you're reading the Bible, that when you have problems in your marriage, you go seek answers there and you go pray about it and you encourage your wife to do the same. Because Mariana kind of like, it's weird because like she looks up to me to this thing. So if she doesn't see me doing it, she's not going to do it. Right? And if we don't be careful, because we become one, if you go down in a downward spiral of doing something bad, she's going to end up doing the same thing. So it's like a reflection. It's sort of like an index account, like it mirrors the stock market. It's
We're always gonna bring numbers into this, but I think
into that.
I think that's
important.
important.
BYOB.com.
That's important though. That's something that I had in my head to say too. Is like we as men going into marriage, like being the head of the household, setting an example, and that's something that I'm going into as well. Yeah. And I think it's important to have also your significant other, your wife, understand that. Like Raquel and I were in complete understanding of that, and by being head of household, that doesn't mean, oh, the man can do whatever, like you can disrespect your wife. No. Like that verse, like we mentioned, like love your wife as Christ loves the church. Dude, that's heavy. That is heavy, So that's something that I'm taking in, and I want to be an example. And as you said, like if I'm setting the example in my marriage, right? If I'm the person that's pushing us towards our goals to become better, then the wife and the kids, they'll follow suit.
Mm-hmm. They'll respect you.
Yeah.
They'll respect you. They'll want to support you. And because that's something very important.
Absolutely.
And, we could go for hours talking about marriage, but I think we should close with this, right? For those that are not married, they're looking to be married. Stop trying to find excuses and trying to find the perfect moment to propose. Take a leap of faith because you're never going to feel ready. For those that are married, okay, and you saw it resonated with something that we said here, and it was like, hey, let me try this out, right? And for women, if you're mad with your husband, follow Nilton's advice. Okay, I think that's very important. I like that advice. Okay, every single time that I have a problem, I fight with your sister now, I'm just going, hey, go listen to Nilton's advice. and then we'll talk.
Hey, well, not my advice. I just kind of passed it on here, put it into the conversation.
That advice came from a woman,
and
actually.
it came from a woman. It absolutely
Look at
did. Yeah.
Look at that.
So a wise woman.
Wise
at that.
woman. What's
wise
her name?
Woman. Ana Paula Valadão.
Ana Paula, thank you.
Yes.
The Greatest Choice podcast, man, are very happy with you. I will make sure that one day you're part of this. All right? Thank you, folks. Until next episode.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.